can you gather around, please? Give it to him.
Park, please!
It always gets your attention, the Commodore. Okay, if we can ask the rest of the people to move in, the bar will remain open for a while so they can come in. Come on, bring them in. Okay, it is Herding Cats. Gentlemen, you got good audio? Everybody set? Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Commodore Barry reception. I'm so happy you all came. I certainly want to thank everyone for attending, and I want to thank the National AOH and LAOH for their help in this event. It's a big event. We have a big display. We're very happy about that display. Thank you. And, you know, one person can't do this. The AOH and LAOH of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you've been a great help, and with everything from the program book and I'm sorry there was an ad missing, and I apologize for that, but we do have a nice event lined up. Thank you for changing that. So we're going to start out, Father, if you can come up. We're going to start in your books, by the way, is the Irish National Anthem. We're going to have the band come up in a minute. We're going to have Father come up and say a blessing so we can kick the day off. Gentlemen in the back. Father?
Let us remember we are always in the presence of a God who loves us and cares for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Oh God, we ask you to send your blessing upon us today as we gather together to remember the history of this ship, to remember the history of the Irish people, to remember the history of John Barry. In this ship, we ask you to call down a blessing upon the memory of all those who built this ship, all those who served on it. We ask you always to give us courage and strength in facing the challenges of our lives. We ask you also to fill our hearts with repentance for all the suffering that goes on in conflicts around the world. It is your children who suffer, and you do not want them to suffer, and neither do we. We gather to remember the history of the Irish people who suffered many years of oppression, but in that time they learned the power of words. They inspired the Irish people to use words, especially through song and humor and storytelling, to outwit the oppressors. And when they themselves became independent and successful, they did not use their wealth or power to invade others, to occupy others, but rather they took the sides of the Davids of the world against the Goliaths. They took the sides of the slaves against the slave owners. Finally, oh God, we ask you to bless our memory of John Barry, whom we honor today. True to his Irish heritage, he spoke more than one language, speaking Yolo, a local dialect of County Wexford that was used by many sailors. He learned the skills of seafaring from his oppressors, and then he exceeded their expertise. He did not use his skills solely for his own benefit, but shared his knowledge with others, training others in what he had learned, and used his skills to form a new nation and to protect it. He shared the wealth he had with family and others who were in need. He was a decent human being who was rightfully admired for both his personal behaviors and his professional life. Bless all of us here so that we can cultivate the understanding of that wisdom that you want for us, the wisdom to recognize the limits of weaponry and to advocate the use of words to create a more just world in which all your children can live in peace, a world in which your kingdom will come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we ask this prayer in the name of the one God who is God of all peoples, who lives and reigns forever and ever.
Thank you. Okay, just a couple of items. We're going to have a change in the agenda in the program. Admiral Cox is currently on furlough due to a government shutdown. So he will not be able to attend, and the Commodore will be reading his remarks in his stead. I do want to point out a couple of things. We tried to get, this is a replica of the statue that's in County Wexford, in Wexford City. And this was going to be on loan by the Navy's History and Heritage Command. Unfortunately, it weighs 350 pounds, and it was too large to put in the display. So we were going to bring it here, and we thought maybe one day 350 pounds, getting it on the ship might be a little much. So we have a replica print of the Commodore from Wexford. There's also a number of displays that are up here, and I invite you all to come and read them. We have on display James Hammond from the Pennsylvania Legislature. Thank you for presenting that. We've got a proclamation from the Commonwealth. We have a proclamation from the Taoiseach, which I invite you to read. Both of those proclamations are also in the program, so please take an opportunity to read that. And then we have a bill that was passed, a joint resolution and signed by George Bush, congressional bill from 2005. Now, I want you to know that it took the AOH 20 years to get that bill passed. And all it said was that Commodore Barry was the first flag officer and the first commissioned officer in the United States Navy. And we went through 20 years of submitting and resubmitting that bill to finally get it passed. And it was buried for years, and we never stopped. And it finally took hold, and it was signed, and you can read the bill, and you can see the folks who signed it. It's a pretty impressive piece of our legislation for the Irish community. At this point, I'd like to ask Casey O'Brien to come to the podium for a moment. Over here on this side. Hold my hand, please. Okay, so there's one reason, one person that is responsible for us all being here today. And this is his granddaughter, that is Jack O'Brien. And you'll see Jack in the display with a picture that I took of him and John McInerney at the memorial that we built in Annapolis. And I insisted, Jack and I and John and others worked very hard to get that installed. And we went through 15 years of prejudice against the Irish, against the Catholics in Annapolis. And when it was finally in and we were about to have the installation ceremony, Jack called me and he was all excited and he said, "We've got it." He said, "It's in, we're ready." And I said, "All right, you and John get in a coat and tie and meet me down there. I'm going to take your picture." And he said, "Oh, we don't want to get in a coat and tie." I said, "I'm not asking you." I said, "I am telling you, get in a coat and tie and meet me down there." And thank God I got that picture with the two of them standing side by side, because John McInerney died that night. And that was a sad day. But he's looking down on us, as is Mr. O'Brien, who is a great friend. So, Casey, thank you for coming. Thank you. This is great. And if I could ask just for a moment of silence. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to introduce George Leone. He is not on the program, but George is a very important person to meet and to talk to. He is heading up the Homecoming 250, which is starting next week. He's got flyers around. You can see and there should be QR codes around somewhere, George, that he'll be heading up the Navy's 250th anniversary events here in Philadelphia, and then the Marine Corps in November? Both. So I wanted George to come and say a few words to talk about what he's doing, and I guess we're sort of a kickoff event for that. So thank you. George?
I am very honored to be here, and I am not surprised at the story that he just told or the fact that you've assembled so many people here to have an exhibit on John Barry. There are only 2 statues at Independence Hall. Not Ben Franklin, not John Adams, George Washington and Commodore Barry. I know that is a tribute to the perseverance and dedication of the Irish people. And we are going to, and he is the father of the U.S. Navy, no ifs, ands, or buts. And we are going to have a big celebration about which he would be extraordinarily proud that starts on October the 9th and lasts through October the 16th, which is the national celebration for both the Navy and the Marine Corps. And because the Marine Corps is very traditional, they know exactly when their birthday is. There's more stuff around their birthday in November. This is going to involve 8 Navy ships, 2 Coast Guard cutters, the Blue Angels, and multiple other flyovers, balls, concerts, galas, a ceremony at John Barry's grave, and this battleship that you're standing on right here. It's going to be spectacular. And Father, I just wish I'd asked you in the brief moment I met you before you spoke to say a prayer for us, because there is this thing going on in Washington right now that does involve various arms of the federal government. But we are full steam ahead, the Navy is full steam ahead, and we are going to have a spectacular celebration of all those who served this country in the United States Navy, beginning with John Barry. Thank you all very much. I hope you come. Please take a brochure, and I look forward to meeting all of you. Go Irish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, if I can ask our musicians to come up, we're going to sing the national anthems. We asked the woman from Band in Cork who sang at the NFL game to come over, but she was booked. So
You have to settle for me.
we're not settling. Thank you. So we're going to start with the Irish national anthem, and then
We'll
sing
segue right into the Star Spangled Banner. We'll sing a song, a soldier's song, with cheerful, rousing chorus, as round our blazing fires we throng the starry heavens o'er us, impatient for the coming fight, and as we wait the morning's light, here in the silence of the night, we'll chant the soldier's song. Soldiers are we, whose lives are pledged to Ireland. Some have come from a land beyond the wave, sworn to be free. No more our ancient Ireland shall shelter the despot or the slave. Tonight we man the gap of danger in Erin's cause. Come, O war wheel, bid cannons roar and rifles peal. We'll chant the soldier's song. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed
make a quick adjustment. Okay, thank you so much. All right, I'd like to ask, is Marshall around? Marshall's the CEO of this battleship, and I'd like to introduce him to say a few words as we get started. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of our staff and our Board of Trustees, our Irish leadership team, Lisa Fitzpatrick Conte, Patricia Egan-Jones, and Tom Riley, who are here with us tonight, welcome aboard the Battleship New Jersey. This is America's longest battleship, 887 feet, 7 inches long, the fastest battleship, over 35 knots, and the most decorated battleship in the nearly 250-year history of the United States Navy, with 19 battle on campaign stars. As Keith noted, my name is Marshall Spivak, and I have the great privilege of serving as the CEO of this living monument. And while I'm not Irish, as I told the ambassador, I visited last year to Loughrea, County Galway for a wedding, and I was told I drink like a good Irishman. So I'll take that, and the ambassador told me that I look a little Irish, so I'm 10 for 10 tonight. But tonight, as always, we honor not only the steel beneath our feet, but the more than 45,000 sailors and Marines who called this ship home during her 21 years of active service. From the Pacific in World War II to Korea, Vietnam, Lebanon, and the Persian Gulf, this ship was the flagship of New Jersey's own Fleet Admiral Bull Halsey as he commanded the 3rd Fleet, and later Admiral Raymond Spruance commanding the 5th Fleet in the South Pacific. And uniquely, this is the only battleship ever commissioned by sitting President Ronald Reagan in 1982. And we're also very proud to have tonight one of our own veterans here with us, Signalman 3rd Class Kevin Flynn. Kevin, where are you? Where's Kevin? Where's your brother?
My brother, Timothy.
Tim, I'm sorry. Tim, where's Tim?
He served on board in New Jersey for 3.5 years back in the 80s.
Well, as you can tell, I just met him earlier today. But this ship, as I mentioned, in Beirut, this ship served off the coast of Beirut for 170 straight days without hitting a port. And this crew did some miraculous things during that time. Of course, we're also deeply honored to welcome Geraldine Bryn Nason, the Republic of Ireland's ambassador to the United States. Welcome, Madam Ambassador. And her new Consul General in New York City and Deputy Consul General in New York City are here as well. And of course, a warm welcome to Gary Laffin, the Lord Mayor of Wexford, the birthplace of Commodore Barry. When the opportunity arose, frankly, just a few weeks ago, it seems like, to create this exhibit honoring Commodore Barry, the first commissioned officer of the United States Navy, we did not hesitate. Barry's story from Wexford to Philadelphia, from merchant sailor to the father of the American Navy, is one we are very proud to showcase here on the nation's most decorated battleship. And of course, we would not be here without our friend Keith Carney, the president of the AOH Commodore Barry Division down in Washington. And his team, Ralph and Tim and Kevin, thank you all for what you've done over the last few weeks to bring this exhibit to life. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to go in and visit the state of New Jersey. This ship, which was the home to many Irish Americans over her 21 years in the fleet. The state of New Jersey has a very proud history with the Republic of Ireland. Of course, is one of the largest populations of Irish Americans in the country. Just a few weeks ago, we had a New Jersey-Ireland Trade Commission delegation over in Dublin and Cork, and Our Assemblyman who was here earlier gifted the ambassador's counterpart, the American ambassador to Ireland, Ed Walsh, a good New Jersey guy, with a special clock that was made out of teak, World War II era teak from the deck of this battleship, and now sits in his office at the U.S. Embassy in Dublin. So tonight could not be a more timely event. As George had noted, next week we join together with the Navy and the Marine Corps to celebrate 250 years of supremacy at sea. Right here on the battleship, we are proud to be a part of this Navy's history, and as George noted, 8 Navy ships are coming, including one that if you are here from a week from now, you will see a Navy ship right outboard the battleship sitting nested to us on the river. So if you are local, we hope you'll come back, take part of the festivities, support the battleship. As George noted, we are in flux of what's happening in Washington, but that doesn't affect us here at the battleship because we are a nonprofit and we are not funded by the Navy. We're not funded by the federal government. We are funded because of the generosity of donors and folks like yourselves who come to support the museum. And so we thank you for coming. We thank you for helping keep alive the proud legacy of Commodore John Barry, the father of the U.S. Navy, and we're really grateful for you being here. Thank you very much for coming to the battleship, and we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. I'm going to ask Tim McGrath to come up for a moment before the Commodore and say a few words. And if you're not familiar with Tim McGrath, he wrote this little book on Commodore John Barry, which is a wonderful writing and great history. Tim was very helpful. He wrote the script of the interview we have with Commodore Barry, which we'll play shortly if you haven't seen it in the display. And he also helped us put the historic museum display together. So a lot of that work is on a wonderful historian, and he's not on your program, but we're going to bring him on. Tim, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Madam Ambassador, Lord Mayor, George, Reverend, Keith, Commodore. That pretty much covers everybody behind me. I'd like to do a shout out, if you join me, for You Gotta Have Harp, who's been providing the music for our evening. And the magnificent catering team, the staff and the cooks that have done such a nice job. I've never had a great shepherd's pie like that. To Ms. O'Brien, somewhere above us, your dad and Mr. McInerney are sharing a shepherd's pie and keeping an eye on how good we do here tonight. And if my grandfather is there, they can probably finally explain to them why we don't sing A Nation Once Again anymore. I'd also like to introduce somebody who came here, who I've known for over 20 years. He is the closest we have to a descendant of John Barry. He is John Barry's adopted nephew, Patrick Hayes' great-great-great-great-great-great-great nephew. Austin Hepburn, where are you? Right back there. The Hepburn family have for generations had members of their family serve in our country's uniforms. Austin's daughter is a West Point First Lieutenant. So you might wonder, like I do, in a few Saturdays when Army and Navy decide to play football, does he side with his ancestor, the first captain of the United States Navy, or then there's this young lady lieutenant he's got to consider? And you think solving the shutdown is tough. The Commodore will be telling you basically his life story, so I will pass on that. But I'm very honored to be here. telling the story of an Irish immigrant who came here at 15, was a captain at 20, was a captain of the finest jet-built ship in the Western Hemisphere at 30, served gallantly for his country, not just in the Revolutionary War, but the beginning of the Quasi-War, and his United States frigate, United States, served unofficially as our first naval academy. His leaders, among them were midshipmen and lieutenants Richard Summers, Stephen Decatur, and Charles Stewart, who happens to be the grandfather of Charles Stewart Parnell. So they will fill you in on that. But I was thinking of something today and about Austin's ancestors in particular. John Barry fought with all his heart to help get the United States created. His brother-in-law, William Austin, fought just as hard because he believed in king and crown and paid a very, very steep price for it, losing his family in fever and pretty much being exiled first to Nova Scotia and to England. So these two men fought against each other. They called the Revolution our first Civil War, and they're not very wrong. And I'm sure many of you have seen Ken Burns' Civil War documentary, where he took film clips from 1913 and 1938 of the veterans on both sides of that war coming to Gettysburg and acting as friends. Separated by an ocean, John Barry and William Austin wrote letters to each other until Barry died. Barry always addressed them, "My dear brother," and Mr. Austin always responded, "My dear friend." There's one letter where he asks William Austin to send him the latest books, including Tom Jones, but says, "Make sure you give them to the captain so I don't have to pay customs duties." But I got to thinking as we were getting this together, these are two men that were diametrically opposed in terms of fact and blood, and yet they continued to get along with each other. They did not make their judgment on the other's character by what political side they believed in and fought for. How wonderful would it be if our friends in Washington, D.C. could pick that mantle up and do it again? Thank you very much.
Okay, editor's note, I am not responsible for anything that happens in Washington, D.C. I'm going to turn the microphone over to the Commodore, who will be speaking on behalf of Admiral Cox, who is the head of the U.S. Navy History and Heritage Command. So, Commodore, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Got to stand away from this podium. It's a good thing I've got a big belly. I can stand away from it naturally. Admiral Cox sends his great regrets that he was not able to be here. We've heard a lot tonight about a little problem they're having down in Washington. So he's very sorry he cannot be here. He asked me to fill in for him. And believe me, Admiral Cox is probably one of the greatest proponents of naval history that we have. We're lucky to have him. And I want to thank him personally for making the effort to get up here and to help us with this display. So if you would, a hand for Admiral Cox. So I'm going to read his speech, and forgive me if I stumble over it a little bit. This is like the second time I've read it. But he says, one of my jobs as the director of the Naval History and Heritage Command is to advise the Secretary of the Navy on matters of historic interest, to include such things as ships' names. Were I the advisor to the Secretaries of the Navy during the administration of President Theodore Roosevelt, when the search was on for an early American naval officer to inspire and serve as a role model for midshipmen at the Naval Academy, and we've heard Tim refer to that, okay, I would have advised in favor of John Barry over John Paul Jones. You may applaud. I'm not here today to bash John Paul Jones. As a Commodore, I will say that John Paul Jones had very few, but he counted John Barry as one of those friends. So this divide between John Paul Jones and John Barry, as Tim would say, if we look back to those days, they would be amazed. Both of them were born elsewhere to serve our fledgling nation with great courage and at great risk. I will say that Barry had certain gentlemanly qualities that Barry lacked, or that John Paul Jones lacked, excuse me. And Barry had every bit of courage, audacity, and strategic vision for which Jones is more famously known. A man not given to bombast. About the only thing Barry lacked was the quotable quote like Jones's, "I have not yet begun to fight." I would note, however, that Jones' quote was from a single source 46 years after the fact. Accounts at the time of the famous battle between the Bonhomme Richard and HMS Serapis in 1779 all recorded that Jones said something more along the lines of, "I may sink, but I'm damned if I'll strike." When Captain Parsons of Serapis called out if Jones intended to surrender, apparently having half the crew of Bonhomme Richard killed or maimed was not as scandalous as swearing. In a similar situation, when Barry's ship Alliance was getting hammered by 2 British ships, and Barry had been taken below with serious wounds, Barry's response to a recommendation to surrender was, "No, sir, the thunder. If this ship cannot be fought without me, I will be brought on deck and to your duty, sir." Not as the same idea that would be immortalized 33 years later by the dying Captain James Lawrence on USS Chesapeake. Don't give up the ship whose flag flies at Annapolis. Barry also defeated and captured both British ships without losing the Alliance. About to give up? No, sir. We'll let you learn. The debate about whether John Broy or John Paul Jones deserves the title Father of the U.S. Navy may rage for decades. It's a bit of a fallacious argument in that there were more than a few people who played a major role in founding the Navy, to include Stephen Hopkins of Rhode Island. Anybody know who he was? He does. I know. Who made it the proposal in the first place to have a Navy. He was also chartering ships out of his own pocket. John Adams, who led the committee that recommended Congress accept the Rhode Island proposal and who drafted the Navy's first regulations on our side. Even Benedict Arnold, who was building ships at Lake Champlain. That was until he did, what he did. In terms of what the Continental Naval officer has had the most influence on the United States Navy today, that might be Paul Jones, because President Theodore Roosevelt made it so. In terms of who had the most impact on the first decades of the United States Navy, that would be John Barry. If I were there today, I would provide more detail on the career of John Barry, but I will just hit a few wave tops. The first ship to be commissioned to the Continental Navy was the merchant ship Black Prince, whose merchant captain was John Barry. Barry oversaw the conversion of the ship to a 24-gun frigate named Alfred. Upon commissioning on 3 December 1775, it was turned over to Lieutenant John Paul Jones. While in command of the 16-gun brigantine Lexington on 7 April 1776, Barry defeated and captured the 10-gun sloop HMS Edward in a fierce fight, the first victory by a continental ship over a British warship in battle. In late September 1778, Barry was in command of the 32-gun frigate Raleigh. Barry diverted 2 British ships, the 50-gun frigate HMS Experiment and 28-gun ship HMS Unicorn, away from the convoy that was departing Boston. In a 7-hour running battle in which 3 ships were seriously damaged, Barry finally chose to run his ship aground to prevent the capture of his crew by a superior British force. Now realize that at the time, captured American sailors were not treated well by the British, and they were sent to British prison ships, where there were as many as 12,000 that died in those prison ships, including those from privateers, about 3 times as many combat deaths as the rest of the Revolution combined. In 1780, Barry developed the first Continental Navy signal book to enable groups of ships to communicate with each other. Realized that Commodore Thomas Truxtun would later get credit for the first U.S. Navy signal book. Later, about 17 years later, in 1797. In May 1781, Barry was in command of the 36-gun frigate Alliance. She was engaged with 2 14-gun British ship sloops, HMS Atalanta and HMS Taraspy. The British ships initially had a maneuvering advantage as they had sweeps, and it was a becalmed fight. Alliance was taking severe damage, and finally, though, the wind picked up, Alliance set her sails, and Alliance put Atalanta and Taraspy to dust. In March 1783, Barry and Alliance engaged the 28-gun ship, the British frigate HMS Sybil, forcing the ship to flee. The ship fled the Alliance. She did not strike to Alliance, but she fled. But that was the last naval battle and the last shot fired of the American Revolution. So the first ship, the first ship captured and the last ship fought against. In August 1785, Alliance was the last ship remaining in the Continental Navy. Barry was paid off just before the ship was sold off, at which point the United States had no Navy. On 22 February 1797, George Washington issued Commission Number 1 in the United States Navy to John Barry, following the resurrection of the United States Navy with the Naval Act of 1794. Barry oversaw the construction of the first ship to be launched in the United States Navy right across the river, the USS United States. He was given command of the United States and fought her during the quasi-war with France. He served as a senior officer in the United States Navy until his death on 13 September 1803. To close, one thing that set Barry apart from most ship captains of the era was his comparatively humane leadership style. He did not have to, while he did have to quell 3 mutinies during his time in service, so he could be as tough as any. But as a general rule, his care and compassion for the well-being of his crew significantly exceeded the standard of the time. His extraordinary leadership, daring, and courage set an example for those junior officers who went on to command the series of U.S. Navy victories during the Barbary Wars and the War of 1812. Tim has listed some of those great heroes. That has influenced the United States Navy even today. It is well and fitting we honor him. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the Lord Mayor of Wexford, Ireland, the birthplace of Commodore John Barry. Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Keith, and good evening, everyone. I suppose before I go to my speech, I'd like to say that I can really feel a sense of pride and passion in the room for everything John Barry. And myself and my colleague here, Anthony, over the last few days have been inspired to bring that story home. Because as you all know, John Barry is from Wexford, but I don't think we understand the legacy he left behind. And I think that's something we're going to do as soon as we get back onto this flight and get back to Wexford. Your Excellency, Ambassador Geraldine Byrne Nason, Reverend Father Tim, George, Mr. Marshall Spivak, CEO of the Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, members of the Ancient Order of Hibernians in America, especially Keith Carney, Ralph Day, and Carolyn Killian, officers and members of the US Navy, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to be here this evening on board the USS New Jersey to honour the memory of a Wexford man who played such an important role in American history. I was honoured and delighted to respond positively when Mr. Ralph Day, former President of the State Board of the District of Columbia and member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians in America, reached out to me and extended me an invitation that I, as Mayor of Wexford, come here to be part of the events to celebrate the legacy of Commodore John Barry and to recognise the pivotal role he played in the formation of the United States Navy. As a Wexford man and as Mayor of Wexford, I extend our best wishes from the people of Wexford whom I represent and join in your celebrations on the 250th birthday of the Navy and to remember John Barry, its first commissioned officer and its first flag officer. Wexford has a proud maritime heritage tradition, and through that tradition provided a lifeline for a young John Barry who, following his eviction, the eviction of his family, was forced to seek out a living as a young boy, working for his uncle who operated a sailing boat in Wexford. From very humble beginnings, the young John Barry soon made his way to America, and as we say at home, the rest is history. We have an annual wreath-laying ceremony at the Commodore John Barry Memorial on Wexford's quayfront. The bronze statue, a gift from the American people to the Irish people, was unveiled in 1956. The statue arrived on the USS Charles S. Sperry and has been visited by 2 US presidents. Both presidents, President Eisenhower and President Kennedy, lay wreaths on Wexford quayfront to honour the legacy of Commodore John Barry. Over the course of my short time here in Philadelphia, I have been very fortunate to have had such excellent hosts. In particular, I want to thank Carolyn, John Nolan, and Keith Carney. For all their time and effort over the past few days. Caroline mapped out a fine itinerary that ensured we would visit the key heritage centres and sites. The visit to John Barry's gravesite in the old St. Mary's Cemetery was momentous for us both. It's really apparent to me as Mayor that the Ancient Order of Hibernians are working tirelessly to advance and promote the importance of Commodore John Barry's leadership role in the development of the US Navy. America has long been a place of refuge and a place of opportunity for the Irish, and we have responded to that openness and prospered while bringing in our unique spirit, culture, innovation and positivity. The relationship between our nations and our people is based on one of shared heritage, and long may this relationship continue and grow for the benefit of us all. I will leave you with the lines of Dr. Benjamin Rush, a signatory of the Declaration of Independence and a civic leader in Philadelphia, who said in his eulogy at Barry's gravesite, "He was born in Ireland, but America was the object of his devotion and the theatre of his usefulness." Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So it's now my honor to introduce the ambassador from Ireland to the United States, Geraldine Byrne Nason, a great friend of the United States. She's doing a great job in Washington, and she just moved into brand new offices. So if you get a chance, swing by 1700 Pennsylvania Avenue and knock on the door. Now, I'm still trying to find out, you know, when you're in an embassy, you're on Irish soil if you enter into the embassy. I'm still trying to find out if I need to claim asylum, where do I step in? So I was told that, well, they have to let you in first, but Madam Ambassador.
Thank Thank you very much indeed, Keith. So good evening, everyone. To honour our own Bhewer Mascanacht in our own precious native language as Ireland's ambassador, it's a real pleasure to be with you here this evening. Indeed, it's more than a pleasure, really. It's a privilege to be on board this iconic battleship, New Jersey. It's really a remarkable setting for honouring what I see here is described as Commission Number 1 of the United States Navy, Commodore John Barry, whom we also call the father of the US Navy. In some ways, I think it's poetic as well to be on the decks of a great ship like this that is really steeped in service and history, and that we're honouring a man whose vision, whose courage, his dedication helped to give birth to America's great Navy, which 250 years ago began that journey to what is now a global status as an extraordinary representation of the United States on the international scene. As a young man, John Barry left Wexford, but he found a calling that would quite literally shape history. As the first officer of the United States Navy, he distinguished himself not just by his skill at sea, and as a young man growing up on an island that, as we say, surrounded by water, was a skill that he could have acquired locally, but he had much more by way of a character that lives on after him, a character of loyalty, showed discipline, he showed service. And tonight we, and I certainly as the representative of the Government of Ireland, deeply, deeply proud to represent and recall that legacy. I should have mentioned at the beginning, I'm also accompanied by a strong Team Ireland here this evening. Our newly minted Consul General Gerald Angley here with us this evening, with his Deputy Katie and Roisin is here. So you have a strong Team Ireland joining us this evening to respect the legacy of Commodore Barry. I mean, it was a significant enough achievement to actually found the Navy, but his legacy is probably just as great when it comes to raising and training and inspiring the next generation of naval leaders. And importantly, I think that Commodore Barry is remembered for installing the Code of Honour that still is a distinguishing feature of our modern US Navy. And that's a Navy identity today that we like to associate very much with the memory of Commodore Barry. I'd like just to take a moment also to acknowledge those who've contributed this evening, certainly to the Irishman over here, Marshall Sperrick, is he still with us? He is the CEO of the battleship and the memorial. What you do every day here on board reminds us that history isn't just something that we remember, that's sort of buried in a recall. It's something that you keep alive through the work that you do here on board. So thank you very much, Marshall, for everything you do. I also wanted to, through the Commodore, thank Admiral Cox for his important words, and Tim, the historian, for the very touching words that you delivered. We're grateful both for service and scholarship, which are absolutely critical, not just to keeping America's naval history alive itself, but also, importantly, for including Commodore Barry in a way that means that his memory and his contribution are both honoured and, importantly, in your work, understood. So we're very, very grateful for that. And of course to my fellow Irishman who's with us this evening, Gary Laffan, the Honourable Lord Mayor of Wexford. In being here, in being here, the Lord Mayor really carries with him the pride of John Barry's hometown, but also the pride of the island of his birth. Your presence here tonight, Lord Mayor, is a testament to the enduring bond that you referred to in your own remarks between the United States and Ireland. We are deeply, deeply proud of our shared heritage, and we're really delighted that we can celebrate that in the person of Commodore Barry tonight. We're together at an important time, a challenging time on the global stage, certainly, but we are also looking forward with hope to the 250th anniversary of the United States next year. We certainly we as Irish representatives here, want to recognise how Irish hands and importantly Irish hearts helped to shape this nation in its very early days. I think Commodore John Barry is really a shining example of what that actually means. He showed that by contributing to the very beginning of this great American story, that the Irish legacy would live on through the history of the United States. And his legacy is deeply rooted here tonight in everything that we have heard in remarks so far. I'm really, really happy that the Taoiseach and his proclamation are with us here this evening, represented. Yes, thank you. Because I think that what the Taoiseach wanted to do in making the proclamation, which I would encourage you to read, is to reaffirm John Barry's place, of course, not only in America's history, in American naval history, but also in Ireland's own story too. It testifies in the proclamation to the work that we continue to do right across the Atlantic, and reminding us that if our histories are deeply intertwined, so too we're looking together ahead to a future, almost as though we're on the bow of a ship together. And in this iconic venue tonight, I wanted to say, first of all, a special thank you to Keith Carney, who's about to move off as I'm recognising him. There's always a dangerous moment to be caught off stage, Keith, and I want to say a very particular thank you. As you said, we're friends in Washington, but the work that you have done to bring this evening together is really important. And to broaden out that recognition, if I may, to the work of the AOH and the LAOH. We see you as keepers, certainly keepers of memory, but also the bearers of Irish identity here in the United States, and an ongoing bridge between our two peoples. And I know that the tireless advocacy that you have done has helped to ensure that Commodore Barry is recognised as he is here tonight. So on behalf of the Government of Ireland, I wanted to say a very particular thank you to the AOH and the LAOH here with us this evening. So I'll conclude, and the people can get back to the bar, but I'll conclude by just by saying that I think it's important that I say very clearly the relationship between the United States and Ireland is as strong and in good health as it has ever been. It's rooted in our shared values. It's certainly, of course, rooted in our history, but most importantly in the relationship between people across the Atlantic. From Wexford to Washington, from Dublin to Philadelphia, I think the story of the Emerald Isle is, the story of the United States is woven through the fabric, the tissue of this great United States. We approach 2026, as I said, the 250th anniversary, and we're really proud to stand beside you here in the United States, not just for a historic moment, but for a moment where we will join hands with you in looking forward and carrying forward together. And in that spirit, and picking up a bit on Tim's remarks earlier, as we honour the memory of John Barry, I think we should do that in the spirit of his service and the friendship and the honour that Commodore Barry exemplified. It's really, for me, a privilege to stand here on this ship of history to salute a man who helped to shape the destiny of both our countries. And I hope that his legacy brings us forward together, and that, who knows, in 250 years there'll be another Ambassador of Ireland celebrating the quarter century that we have ahead of us. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, I'm going to take a minute to present some gifts to our speakers. Is Christina around? Cox, where are you? The bar's still not open, so stick around. If Christina's here, please come up. Kevin, can you help? Or Marshall, can you come up? Commodore, can you stand for me? All right, so we're going to do a quick presentation, and then the Father's going to come up. We're going to have a wreath ceremony. The Consul General is going to be assisting the AOH and LAOH National President and National Director. We're going to dedicate this wreath to all the Irish Americans, those of Irish descent who served in the United States Navy and on board this ship. So in the interim, I have presents for all these folks. Can you, Lord Mayor, you can stand. And I think we lost Christina. Here, George, if you could please. Kevin, I need you up here. That's it. You can put those back. Marshall's over there. Marshall, that's for you. And if Kevin, this is for you. Thank you. So this is a copy of the law that you'll see, the joint resolution of Congress that took us 20 years to pass. It's a good read, but it is official. So I thank you all for coming and partaking, and I hope you can get that back to Ireland. Ambassador, I'll bring that back to Washington. Thank you so much. Now, Father, if you can come up, we're going to do a quick blessing. So let me just give you the rest of the evening, which will be short. We're going to bless the wreath. Our people in place, if our still photographer can get on this side to document that as it goes over. So people who want to come over and watch I can guarantee you no fish will be hurt by this wreath. So, Father?
Okay, I'd invite everyone to raise your right hand, and from the depths of your own spirit, please call down God's blessing upon this wreath, which represents this evening we have shared together. We ask God to bless this wreath. May it be a reminder to all of us of all of the characteristics of the Irish people and the American people that we have shared. May it touch our hearts, may it touch our memories, and help us all to follow the example of John Barry, to live both in his personal life, his professional life, and his political life. The virtues that we heard described this evening, we ask God's blessing upon this wreath. We're going to bless it with some water for someone brought over from Knock in Ireland. So remember Our Lady of Knock, but we ask the blessing on this wreath and a blessing on our memories, that we might always live up to the values that we have heard about tonight. And we ask this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Okay, Commodore, can you bring that over? Don't throw the medal over, just the wreath. There we go. Marshall, do you want to instruct? Okay.
We have one more special surprise for everybody after the wreath is cast into the river, and that is we will be firing off one of the battleship's 5-inch guns. And we'll ask Madam Ambassador if you'd be willing to... It's not live ammunition. It is a live shoot, but it is not live ammunition. It is ceremonial in nature only. But after the wreath is cast, if you can join us back right out at the tables on the deck of the ship, and we will do that right afterwards. Thank you very much.
Okay, one more thing.
Yes,
Hey, yes, James. Okay, can you stay, James? one second, we're going to have James come up. He's going to give you present copies of the proclamation from Pennsylvania.
Jimmy Brennan's one of our state reps actually showed up also.
Okay. Go. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'm not saying it. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for one moment, please.
Ralph?
As a my name is James Haddock, and I am a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, and I'm accompanied with Tim Brennan, who also is a member of the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania. And on behalf of the state legislature, we have a state proclamation celebrating both the 250th birthday of our Navy and Commodore John Barry's first commission. And the proclamation goes on with his Irish heritage and the proudness that he brought to the foundation of our Navy. And on behalf of the state of Pennsylvania and our 1.9 million, 15% of this great state of Pennsylvania has Irish heritage. So the history is great, and Madam Ambassador, Lord Mayor, I would also like to tell the Ambassador I was the mayor of Avoca, Pennsylvania, named after Avoca in Wicklow County. So.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you would proceed on the port side of the ship, left side, up about 50 feet or so, just past the tables, we're going to fire on Philadelphia. Ceremonially. And I will, once that's done, I'm going to start playing our Commodore Barry interview here. So.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Commodore Barry, welcome on board the Battleship New Jersey for the 250th anniversary of the United States Navy. Commodore, how did you come to America?
I was born in County Wexford, Ireland. My father was a tenant farmer, not allowed to own the very land he tirelessly worked on. As a young boy, I was handed over to my uncle Nicholas, a successful Wexford captain who owned a small merchantman. I learned the ropes under his watchful eye before joining the crew of a ship bound for Philadelphia in 1760. I was about 15 then. Once in Philadelphia, I rose up the rigging, so to speak, and was given command of my first merchantman in 1765, the schooner Barbados. My success in the merchant trade led to being appointed command of the Black Prince, the finest yet built ship in the colonies owned by Robert Morris. How good a ship was she? Well, on my last voyage back from London in 1775, My crew and I took advantage of a gale to make 237 miles in 24 hours. I don't know of a faster day of sailing.
Tell us about your service in the Continental Navy.
The Black Prince returned to Philadelphia when the Continental Congress was debating the idea of the colonies having their own navy. Once it was established, I was assigned the task of refitting the Black Prince and several other merchantmen as ships of war. In March of '76, I received my first naval command, the brigantine Lexington. In April, we fought and defeated the Royal Navy sloop Edward, the first naval victory for the Americans in the war. I proudly reported to Congress that my crew behaved with much courage. In late June, the Lexington joined the Continental ships Reprisal, Wasp, and their crews, unloading hundreds of barrels of gunpowder off American merchantman Nancy, and fighting 2 British warships at the same time at Turtle Gut Inlet, near Cape May. When the enemy fire got too hot for us, we filled a sail with gunpowder, using it as a fuse to blow up the Nancy before the British could seize her. 5 days later, on the 4th of July, Americans declared their independence from Great Britain.
You had a couple of adventures on land with the British, right?
I did. The first came in January of 1777, when my crew and I fought with Washington's army in their victory at Princeton. The second came a year later, after the Redcoats had captured Philadelphia. My men and I were further north of the city when, in February of '78, I led 2 barges with muffled oars silently past the British sentries on the Philadelphia docks in the dead of a bitterly cold night. Days later, we took part in a cattle-rustling caper in New Jersey with General Anthony Wayne. When we were sighted by the Royal Navy, I led the barges south along the Delaware banks on the New Jersey side, stopping to burn haystack to keep the British tars chasing us. Meanwhile, General Wayne took the cattle north and got the herd safely to Valley Forge, and a healthy meal for our army comrades. Days later, we captured a British schooner and 2 transports. I sent a courier to Valley Forge with my report, and also a cheese and a jar of pickled oysters, telling the general they craved his acceptances.
Tell us about your voyages commanding the frigate Alliance.
Ah, the Alliance. She was the finest built American frigate of the war. Between 1781 and 1783, I made 3 voyages with her to France. On the first one, we survived a night where we were surrounded on 3 sides by icebergs. She was one lucky ship that evening. On the voyage home, I faced down a mutiny of captured British sailors. That's how desperate our Navy was for manpower, hanging the ringleaders by their thumbs until they named their accomplices. Days later, we were south of Nova Scotia when we encountered 2 British warships, the Atalanta and Trepassey. Battle no sooner commenced when the wind died. The enemy ships, having sweeps, rowed themselves to either side of our stern, leaving us practically helpless while they battered Alliance, and I took a piece of grape shot in my shoulder. Still gives me trouble. I was laid up in Boston recovering, but luckily was joined by my wife, Sarah, during those weeks. In March of '83, Alliance was sailing north, not far from Cape Canaveral, when we encountered and fought the British frigate Sybil. After about an hour's fighting, the Sybil sheered off and fled. It was the last naval engagement of our revolution.
Can you tell us about your leadership in the United States Navy?
After the revolution, I made a voyage to China aboard the merchantman Asia, the second ship to enter Chinese waters flying the Stars and Stripes, what the Chinese called the Flowery Flag. Then, in 1794, I was honored by President Washington to receive the first captain's commission in the new United States Navy. For several years, I oversaw the building of our new frigates and personally supervised construction of my frigate, the United States, a twin sister of the frigate Constitution up in Boston. I had my share of prizes seized during the quasi-war with France, but I'm proudest of how I used my ship as our first naval academy. My midshipmen and lieutenants included Stephen Decatur, Charles Stewart, and Richard Summers. There's 3 heroes for you. In 1802, I was asked by President Jefferson to command a squadron bound for the Mediterranean. But my health prevented acceptance.
Commodore, what do you think your legacy should be?
My legacy? My legacy. I hope it would be my record as a sailor who loved serving his country. I hope it will be my love of family. I was twice married, but had no children. I always financially assisted my family back in Ireland. And also, being a good citizen. My brother-in-law, William Austin, was as much a supporter of England as I was for the United States. He and I remain friends. For a republic will only survive if we can judge someone for their character and not just by their politics. And finally, my love for the United States. Recently, an old friend who also emigrated to America years ago wrote me he was returning to Ireland. Why, I asked. There is everything the heart could ask for here.
Commodore, it was a pleasure interviewing you today. Thank you so much.